Okay, here's who the Cyclones are taking to the Southern Scuffle. A little change in the lineup, and then I'll answer questions about it. 125, Caleb Feasley. 133, Zach Redding and Ramazan Adasayov. 141, Drew Woodley. No entry at 149. 157, Jason Kreiser, Isaac Judge, Andrew Huddleston, Ben Monroe. 165, Carter Schmidt and Grant Stotts. 174, Julian Broderson, MJ Gaitan, Manny Rojas, and 184, Joel Devine. It's 14 athletes to the Southern Scuffle. So obviously we're keeping some guys home. Had a great experience in New Orleans. A lot of good things happened, but we got dinged up in a lot of places. We're really dinged up at 125 right now. Corey Cabanban in the warm-up stepped wrong right before the Penn State match and tore 2 ligaments in his foot. He's out 6 weeks. Kyson Terrakina is back drilling. I'm looking for him sometime to enter the lineup in January if everything goes well. Hopefully early January, but we'll know more. Panero Johnson, just a little tweak, just a little baby tweak of something. He'll be fine for Wyoming. Casey Swiderski coming back. Hope to have him back by Wyoming. We'll know more the first week of January. Just resting Carr and Coleman because they're old. And we've got a heck of a schedule. If you look at our schedule the first semester and you look at what we've got to face the second semester, we've decided to train those guys. We're going to train really hard. The guys that I mentioned that we're not taking. So the guys going to Chattanooga are going to get a day at the beach compared to the guys that are going to be in town with me. And let's see who else. Sam Schuyler looks to be progressing, and we hope to have him back, according to our trainer, for Wyoming as well. So that's an unusual opening statement. It's more like a medical report, but that's what it is. It is what it is.
More of that
Yeah. I don't hold my cards usually.
So then what do you hope to gain from the 14 that are going to the Scuffle? Because there's some starters, but obviously...
Yeah, obviously in some places, we're really kind of curious to see, how some guys compete, in terms of just up in their national ranking. I mean, the Scuffle looks to be a pretty good field. You never know who shows up this time of year, but it looks to be a pretty good field. So, we need some guys at 33 and 74 especially to raise their stock. I think we're climbing up the rankings, and we're wrestling for high seeds right now at the end of the year. I think you have to be very intentional if you want to go get a trophy and compete for national championships. You got to be thinking seeds, and you got to be thinking, putting yourself in the best situation at the brackets of the Big 12, and then putting yourself in the best situations at the NCAA tournament. And that's the conversations we're having, and that's our thought process. So I think our schedule was great. I mean, if you look at Wisconsin, Penn State, Iowa, who am I missing? Cornell. I don't know if anybody probably in the nation had that kind of exposure. And, we paid a little price in terms of our bodies a little bit. Knock on wood that we're all going to recover from that. But, we got a little dinged up in all of those matches. And so probably playing it smart and getting ready to jump into a really hard part of the second part of the season.
What did the first half of the season teach you just in terms of maybe refocusing goals or how are you approaching maybe the second half of the season after what you've learned through the first half?
Obviously, we had some guys step up that people probably hadn't heard of or hadn't heard much of. We felt they were pretty good. We had a really good summer of training, and so then there's optimism. But to me, it's like, okay, I want to see you get off the scale and step into a hostile environment and then go win and go compete. To me, that's the litmus test. And, we had a lot of guys past that from the time we started. First weekend we went down to Florida and Wisconsin. A lot of people might have been shocked. I don't think we were that shocked. We know what we've got here. So we got to do a really good job of making sure that we win the war. And sometimes that means you got to be smart in a few battles along the way.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know, maybe to ask it a little bit more directly, like, have goals changed now that you know kind of what you really do have in guys like Casey and Panero, and now that Sam's taken some strides forward?
I think we've had really high goals. We've set goals as a team to win the Big 12 championship. We set goals to get a trophy at the NCAA tournament. That was predetermined way before we went down to Florida and wrestled Wisconsin and opened up that weekend. So That's what we want to do, and that's what we're here to do.
How have you seen the guys respond since coming back from New Orleans?
Good. We've only been back a couple days, so we're going to be a little stiff and sore. So I think we're getting ready to start our 4th workout since we've been back here in a few minutes. And so and right now we're a lot of reps, a lot of drilling, some running, some weightlifting. Not a lot of live yet for some guys because we are getting healed up. So I'm glad that we've got a little time to get everybody back. And by the time next week, we'll start putting some guys out there in some short live goes and just see what we've got with those guys that are kind of question marks. And if they're not ready to go, then, we'll wait a week.
How have you seen Pinheiro really, taking that loss, really bounce back from that?
Again, Pinheiro's number 1 fan. And he bounces back quick. He came off that mat and said, "Coach, I'm going to get that guy at the NCAA tournament." That was the first words out of his mouth. And so 2 months ago, I might not have believed him because he has been a surprise to me too. Not in terms of his ability, but just in terms of how he's approaching it and how he's preparing for events, his weight management, his training. We have seen big changes in that, big changes from a year ago, 6 months ago. And when you couple that with real strong self-belief, you get a guy like Pinheiro, and I'm excited to see how he progresses, because freshmen, they're supposed to improve really fast that first year, so who knows where that guy's ceiling is.
I know one thing that you guys have been working on with him is just the conditioning aspect of it. What was that process like, just to ensure that he could go 7+ minutes if needed?
Me barking at him a lot, and him listening to me bark at him a lot and responding. You can bark, but if they don't respond, then you're not getting anywhere. And so he was ready for that challenge, and he wanted to fix that. He's got a lot of pride. He was embarrassed how he had some of those matches in the late spring, early summer, where he did get really tired. And so we did some medical stuff. We took blood tests and found out that there was an issue, and we got some medical changes involved there, and some awareness, and then Pinheiro needed to understand that if he's going to do things right, he had to eat right, he had to train right, and he did all that stuff. And that's not easy to do for freshmen, because that's one of the biggest chinks with freshmen is managing stuff away from the room. And so that's kind of what I'm the most proud of him right now, is if he keeps doing those things and has a good third period, he's dynamite. He's really good.
How much did the growth during the gray shirt year for him? I feel like that did maybe a lot more for him than maybe the average freshman.
Oh, I think it did. I think that year, him sacrificing, coming out here and living, and you got to pay your own way when you're a gray shirt, so you make a lot of sacrifice. And so him coming in and be able to being in the room as much as he was in the RTC world was huge. He wasn't, that dude got last on more runs than he didn't get last in. And I mean last out of 35 guys. And it was a struggle for him to get through a practice. It really was. So he's made big gains. But even throughout all of that, he couldn't get through a practice one day. The next day, he thinks he's still the best guy in the room. So that's the best thing he's got going for him.
The move Marcus hit on Aaron Brooks, that looked like it was very calculated, like he meant to swing through and do that. Is that something he's practicing in the room?
Marcus just scrambles so well. He's got little tricks. He's dangerous. He just, he ends up on top and scrambles a lot. And so I don't know if there's a name to it. Maybe it's a Coleman now. But, you got to be careful shooting in on that guy, because if you step up one way or the other, he's good at tipping you. And, if you look, when he's kind of went on his pin streaks, a lot of them come from scrambles. That's what he does. And so we're trying to get Marcus to understand, like, he's got to let it fly more, because when he lets it fly, that's what happens. We didn't do that very well against Oregon State. We were really conservative. So for Marcus Coleman to, kind of lay an egg and not have a great match, even though the Oregon State kid's really good, nothing taking that, when that kid's a top 10 kid, but obviously Marcus didn't open up there. To turn it around in less than 3 hours and not only win, but bump up a weight and beat the silver medalists from this summer in the World Championships at that age group, and then come back and do what he had to do the next day after a loss, to me is super impressive. That's a mentally strong guy.
Scuffle 74, you rattled off a handful of names there. Is that a potentially a Russell-off scenario, or are you sticking with Broderson?
No, I think Broderson's proved to us that, he's the guy right now. He's made big strides. You see him climbing up the rankings. This is a good test for him. I know he's excited about that. He needs to go out and beat somebody really good that he's not supposed to beat, and I think he's capable of that. MJ and Manny, MJ Gaetan and Manny Rojas, two guys that can be superstars for us down the road. Those guys just need to go and feel it, but the plan for those two guys is still the red shirt. We're going to bump up Divine, see how he feels. He's cutting a lot of weight. Maybe give him a little bit of a break, get him up to 84, let him use his body and his length a little bit there. And, he's still got the ability to go back down to 74 if we need him. And he's done a good job. I mean, he's an NCAA qualifier, so, we've got some depth there. So just, playing around a little bit.
Yeah. Freshmen can wrestle unattached now?
They can, but this event has to be attached. So they all burn one of their 5 by going to this, because this event doesn't allow unattached. It's all attached.
Anybody going to Coralville?
No, nope, we're not going to Coralville. You're either on the training bus with Coach Stresser, or you're on the Chattanooga bus with Coach Metcalf and Coach St. John. So,
Cool.
All right, see you guys.